Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here in another Awakened Woman episode. And today I'm with lovely Kerry. Kerry is a life coach and specializes in helping people find their true happiness through self worth, self love, and self awareness. Pretty important topics, I think. Um, Most of us, or some of us who are listening to us, probably connect and relate to this topic, which is very broad, but we are gonna, make sure that we cover the specific key points that we want to transmit or just share with all. And yes, as I mentioned, so for today's topic, we will be diving deeper with Kerry on into how to heal after a toxic relationship, through implementing self-love and mindfulness practices. So thank you so much, Kerry, for being here with us today.
And
Would you like to share anything? Yes.
no, I was just going to say, I'm so happy to be here. I think it's a great topic to talk about. I think there's so many people out there struggling in a toxic relationship, getting that feeling that something doesn't feel right, but they don't really understand what's always going on. So I'm
Yeah,
happy to be part of this conversation with you.
absolutely. Thank you so much. And I love having you here specifically for this topic because we've collaborated in the past with Kerry. We've done a lot of other live events through Instagram. And we are very passionate about this topic. And I think one of the key things that we were chatting before we started actually recording was the importance of being self-aware, because sometimes we go through challenges and toxic relationships, but we don't even know that we are in a toxic relationship. And the reason why this happens and why people can not recognize is this related to me? Like, am I in some sort of challenging situation where it's not bringing the best out in me and the other person? Is because we are familiar with that dynamic from childhood. So it all starts from, if you grow up in a family where you were heard, where your needs were met, where you had emotional support from both of your caregivers, your parents were attentive to your emotional needs whenever you were experiencing distress, and you felt supported and protected, like all the basic needs that we need to grow as healthy human beings. Then whenever someone comes and offers you something different, you will recognize, you will say, oh, wait a minute, like, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel fulfilling, this doesn't bring me this sense of peace and safety. Same happens the other way around. When you come through dynamics in your family where for one reason or the other your parents were not able to be there with you all the time. Our parents back in the days were working a lot. We were also left with our even grandparents to take care of us. So when we come through dynamics where not all our needs were met, and we grew this sense of uncertainty and anxiety whether our needs are going to be met or not. And this also brings abandonment, wound, neglect, all that. Then when someone comes and gives us the other, like, presence, love, and wanting, like, to help us meet those needs that is on us also, then that's when we are gonna be experiencing this, oh, I don't feel familiar with this. So we will tend to go with what is familiar. What are your thoughts in there, Kerry, and your opinions?
Well, I think you hit some great points. When our negative core beliefs can be developed by 7 years old. Okay. So if all we see when we're young is an abusive father, or our parents' neglect, like you said, or your dad, my father was a alcoholic. He was a very established, did well in life, but he was always on the bottle when he came home. And so when I was little, and my brother and sister, we would have that people pleasing that we learn to do it as a younger age. Okay. We learn things to make things more comfortable. You know, if I people pleased and I was always doing whatever would make him happy, maybe the rage and the explosions and the stress and everything would be less. So when we learn, when we learn and don't learn, you know, things as a child, that carries on as an adulthood. So as a kid, I could go into PTSD and freeze mode because if I was quiet, it would be, you know, I'd be invisible. But carrying that into adult relationships, it doesn't work. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they have things that they developed as a child that they don't even realize,
Yeah.
because that's what was my comfort zone. I didn't know any better, right?
Yeah.
We looked like a perfect white picket house family, but I didn't know any better. And so comfort zones a lot of times aren't really the healthiest place to be, because after that, I looked for people subconsciously, consciously that were like my dad, that was loud, that were verbally abusive. And I got into relationship after relationship. And, you know, I was trying to be a people pleaser. Oh, it's my fault. If I only did this, oh, maybe I can fix him.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Maybe I
Oh,
can make
yeah.
him change and do all that. And
Yeah.
so we're trying to give it 100%, because that's always the relationship I had. I never realized until an adult that relationships are supposed to be two-sided. You know, there are green flags. We always talk about the red flags, but they're
Yeah.
green flags. And I wasn't aware of the good things in a relationship. So it's very true what you said. What we learn, you know, it is what we can carry on. And so when we have a negative core belief that we develop,
Mm.
and that we're not loved, we're unlovable, we're not worthy, we're helpless, we're not capable, those many times are formed from our early childhood, or as we get older, if you've had something very traumatic, it can form there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you pretty much summarized the introduction of the topic. And I think this is very important to understand first. And because we need to first also explain why we do get into toxic relationships in the first place, because someone could say, wait a minute, but if you already know that you are not being valued, that you are not having comfortable emotions, that you are feeling not appreciated, not cared for, if he's not bringing the best in yourself and the other person, why are you there in the first place? Wait, where it is very easy to say it, but it's very challenging to actually understand where it comes from. And as you mentioned, it comes from our subconscious mind and our limiting beliefs, or negative beliefs, as you mentioned as well, that we are not even aware. So the first point is understanding that comfort zone and familiarity does not mean healthy zone. So recognizing what is healthy and what is not, by really getting to understand what are your parents' patterns in your relationships. And this as we mentioned, comes from childhood. So you gave an example on your own experience in your own dynamics. So life will always ends up bringing you the situations that will trigger those core wounds and those traumas for you to heal, acknowledge, and work on it. So it's like, look, I'm here, you've been avoiding me all this time. It will find a way for you to see what is coming to your life. And our very common coping mechanism is either avoiding or blaming. We're either not going to take accountability of those emotions and the triggers that are coming up in front of us, or we keep having the blaming game, just blaming the other person. It's their fault, they are not doing this, they are doing that. It doesn't mean that what people do is not going to cause harm. Yes, of course, we cannot control what people do. But it's asking yourself, one, why are you with someone who is causing you harm? And why you haven't left in the first place, which what I say is easier to say, but harder to do when you are in a dynamic like that. And second is it takes self-awareness. So that this is where all this work starts. So for us with Kerry, we mentioned that self-awareness is so important. So maybe let's start giving, those tips on how can people develop more self-awareness to understand their own toxic patterns in relationships.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, self-awareness is great, but in a toxic relationship, I think it's really important to understand what's actually going on in the relationship, okay? And that's what I'm talking about is self-awareness is first, what is the truth about the relationship? Because a lot of times we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to admit that we're in a something that's bad for us, okay? We're embarrassed, we're feeling down. We're also intimidated by the toxic person. We can be. And so we're trying to protect them, even though we might not know that we are.
Yeah.
So what I want to the listeners to think about first is really look at your relationship. Okay, what's truthfully going on there? Is the person you're with, are they attacking your self-worth? Do they criticize you a lot? Are they making you compromise your values? So you're with a person that is toxic. When I say toxic, a lot of times toxic people have narcissistic traits. Okay, this is not, I'm not saying that they have narcissistic personality disorder, but toxic people have narcissistic traits. Try saying that as a tongue twizzler.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's important to understand those traits because we can go into what's called cognitive dissonance. And we're looking at this man woman partner and we're like, well, wow, they love me, they've been loving me for 10 years, they brought me dinner the other day, okay? And then what goes on the other side of your brain is, okay, well, they're verbally being mean to me, putting me down, always say everything's my fault, they don't take blame, and it's putting me in a state of massive confusion where my brain is just going all the way around. This is where it's so important to understand what is true and what is not true when you're in a toxic relationship. And the messages you get, it really, I mean, you can take the most brilliant woman or man, but when you're with somebody that's toxic and has a lot of the narcissistic traits, verbatim from the book, they are master manipulators. They can be extremely smart, and you don't even understand you're getting manipulated because some do it so subtly that you're just like, how did that happen to me? Why was they did this? They cheated on me, but now it's my fault. And I'm feeling guilty that it's my fault because I didn't give them enough love. I mean, it can be such, so that's the awareness part of it. Be aware. Are they isolating you from others? Okay. Are they not respecting your boundaries? We can be in toxic relationships, right? And we feel like we love somebody. So maybe we should tolerate more and give in because we love them. But there's a fine line there. If they aren't respecting your boundaries, if they aren't being nice to you, and that's a big red flag. Okay. And one thing that's important to know, if the love in your relationship or the communication is constantly inconsistent, that's a big red flag. We all have bad days and we can all have times where, hey, I'm just in a cranky mood. But when it's always a roller coaster up and down, the cognitive dissonance where you're getting mixed messages, that is a big red flag. Those are things to be aware of, okay? And if you're getting told your feelings don't matter, very common, you're too sensitive, you're too emotional, oh, why are you going to your friends? You're believing them instead of me. I love you more than anyone else in this world can love you. That's manipulation through communication, is a whole nother area. But this part of being aware of the truth, I think, is really important. And then you can go into the awareness. And I'm going to ask you, your awareness, when you feel like you're walking on eggshells, anybody out there in a toxic relationship, what usually happens with PTSD is we get physically, we feel something in our body, right? I have clients, they say they get sweaty, heart palpitations, stomach aches. They feel like they're going to vomit, headaches. I used to get tightness in my jaw or my jaw would lock. And that's your body telling you, be aware, okay? Something is not right. And you've been in this conflicting, manipulating relationship that it's really hard to trust your gut feelings. So I work with people, let's go with your gut feelings. What do you feel physically? And, they'll talk about all that. And I said, that's wonderful. Now be aware when you start doing it, writing it down. What triggered that? Is it, being put down? Is it being devalued? And it could just be in a regular voice. So understanding that process and listening to it can help you when you're starting to get anxiety from it, you can go into some grounding techniques, to relax and be aware. And there's so much to talk about. What else would you want to add to that?
No, amazing. Like it's as I mentioned at the beginning, it's just like a broad topic, and we can talk about so many things, but I'll probably touch on the main ones that really stuck with me, that I will probably want to dive deeper and elaborate a little bit more. And it's probably the fact that we understand that sometimes, having that self-awareness is very important. And Kerry gave really good tips and signs on how you can really have discernment whether you are in a toxic relationship or not. That's the first step. Then the second step, I think, which is one of the most challenging parts, is actually learning to go not through your patterns, not following the patterns that you've been following, but learning to really choose something different, which is where your transformation and that healthy relationship is. So how do you get there? So the first point is understanding if our dynamic, our relationship is not bringing comfortable emotions, and you are constantly in a battle of wanting to get your needs met, or wanting to communicate, on wanting to solve issues, on wanting to have more intimacy, on wanting to communicate better how you can work on the relationship. If this is not coming from a place where both want the same and both are working as a team, there's a disbalance already in the relationship. And it's a constant battle of you proving your worth. Why? Because within yourself, you don't feel worthy. That's how you felt as a child, and unintentionally, right? Like a lot of our painful experiences in our childhood, our parents didn't do it intentionally, and we didn't have the emotional tools and the capacity to understand adult situations. So we personalize all these challenges that we had as kids. I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not chosen, I'm not enough. These are very common core wounds that mainly all humans have. So then the next step here is understanding, okay, now I know I'm in a toxic relationship because of my childhood. Now, how can I start, choosing different? And it's actually not as complex as it seems. So once you understand that that's your pattern, going towards men who, let's say, don't value you, men who make you feel that you are not worthy, men who are not honoring your needs, men who are not protecting you and respecting you, then that's the mirror that the person is showing you as a way for you to know what you have to work on yourself. So if you're with a person who is constantly cheating on you, see on the ways on how you are cheating yourself. Are you really honoring and respecting yourself? Because if you stay with someone who is cheating on you, you're cheating on yourself. The only way to cut the cheating is to be honoring yourself and move yourself away from situations that are going to bring that lack of respect. So it's you starting to do what you feel the other is not giving you, because that's what you need to give to yourself. And that's because of your childhood situations, right? So it is reparenting ourselves is called. It's being that mother or father that we wish we had, but we couldn't have for many reasons. And start giving that to yourself. So use those, challenges that Kerry mentioned on what are the common patterns. And you will see when you sit down and really reflect, Our parents are really, really common. Like in my case, for example, to give an example, like I've attracted a lot of unavailable, emotionally unavailable men into my life, who constantly were not making me feel that my needs, emotional needs, were valued and valuable and enough, or not enough, but worthy of having. So they made me feel that I was asking for too much. And that's because I had a father who was emotionally unavailable too. So that emotional connection was not there. So what my inner child wants to do is to find closure and repair that broken dynamic with that parent. So that's what our subconscious mind wants to do. Okay, let me just fix it. Let me show that I'm actually worth it, because deep down you always know that you're worth it. You always know that you're valuable. You always know that you are enough. So I would say that's how you kind of start like changing that pattern. What would be your advice on that, Kerry?
I think it's great to see the pattern and what you're changing. But I think it's also when you talked about reparenting yourself, when I get to a stage with a client, it's teaching them that they're the safe place that they can go within them, and learning to do that. And sometimes when they're really struggling with a trauma, I talk about, kind of take yourself out like you're a friend looking in, and you're looking into the situation, right? What would you tell your friends? How would you talk to your friend in that situation? Because it's so much easier for them to talk to a friend than to tell themselves, and talk compassionately with themselves. So that sometimes is a really good exercise in reparenting. I've worked with some women that they have a lot of, they had a terrible childhood. The mother was absolutely, it's just terrible. And so we got to a phase working where I want you to be the adult and talk to yourself when you were 5, what you went to when you were 5, and talk to yourself how that's not fair, and no, it wasn't right. Be that adult talking to you of what you needed at that stage. And then when you had, teenage, when you needed your mom to be there and she wasn't, talk to yourself. And some write it down, and we do some, there's a lot of anger sometimes, and I'm always like, do not do this inside. I'm like, take it outside if you got a little fire pit, and go burn it, release it, let go of it, and let go of that anger. And if you need to do it twice, 3 times, do what you need. And so that is different little techniques, ideas of kind of reparenting yourself that has been, useful for some of the people I've been working with.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important parts what you mentioned there, which is also what Kerry and I do, is emotional healing. So we touch on patterns, what familiarity could be, that is not always what healthy or safety means, how to break the patterns, and now we're coming into like, okay, when we do the work, then, and how we represent ourselves, then the key point as well here that I want you all to take is, whatever technique or practice you decide to do, the common denominator for trauma healing, and again, trauma doesn't mean a severe situation in your life. It can mean different situations that you as a child consider traumatic, is coming back to your body and building that safety within yourself, which for some people, depending on what they went through, can be challenging, because one of the coping mechanisms when we go into sympathetic nervous system, when we are in fight or flight mode and we're experiencing a traumatic event, is we dissociate. And this is a healthy way of our body, taking us away from that pain, because in that moment it's too intense. So us having these triggers, us having these coping mechanisms, is actually a sign that is a healthy nervous system. So that's the first step. Now, what we need to do is starting to build that connection, reconnection back to your body, with building that safety within ourselves, and starting to, in small doses, little by little, while you are building that safetiness within your body, is feeling again those painful emotions. So what Kerry was mentioning about anger, frustration, sadness, hate, all these emotions are okay. They are part of the human body. Like, we learn that it's bad to be angry. We learn that it's bad to be upset. It's bad when you take those emotions against someone, yes. But when you are feeling those emotions and you are releasing them, in healthy ways, meaning not against others, that's a healthy nervous system. That's the healthy way to actually show and release your emotions, because otherwise you repress them, they keep stuck and they keep accumulating. And that's why people, have rages of anger, or are not able to control their reactions, because then their repressed emotions have been stuck in their nervous system for too long. So I think that's important also to mention, because some people might say, oh, but wait, I don't even feel any emotions. I feel so distant from my body. That's okay. This work can also be done on yourself. This work is for everyone. And of course, I would say you can heal yourself, because at the end you have the wisdom, your body has so much awareness, and you're the only one who knows what you need in order to heal. However, it's really recommended to work with a coach like Kerry and I, or a therapist, a psychotherapist, whoever you think is a good fit, because you will have that guidance and from people who already know and have been there. So I just wanted to mention that, the importance of really coming back to the body, because healing happens in the body. Like, you can read all the information about self-love, patterns, trauma, like all the practices. You can work with a therapist. You can also read a lot of books. But if the work is not done on your body, and coming back to your body with somatic work, or any other practice that brings you back to awareness in the body, then it's gonna be more challenging for you. Yeah, what are your
Well, I was
thoughts?
just gonna say I love everything you just said. The only thing I wanted to mention is healing's not easy, okay, right? And to be compassionate and understand, you can have some great days that you feel in progress, and then you take 5 steps back and you're like, I didn't go anywhere. You did go places.
Yeah.
And coming back and falling back is normal. It's all part of a healing, okay? And it's so important to not be hard on yourself, and don't make yourself feel bad. If you have bad days where you break down, let yourself break down, because
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of feelings you haven't been feeling for years, decades. And so when you start getting into those feelings again and trying to sit with it and being like, okay, this is anger I'm feeling, I don't like it. And you can say whatever else you want to say about what you feel. And there's a lot that you probably would want to say. But when you sit with it and you acknowledge it, you're taking the control away from it. Okay. It's not going to make you be that hamster on that little wheel spinning. You're naming it, you're sitting with it, and it doesn't feel good. But this is all part of the process. It's a lot of what you were saying too.
That's beautiful, Kerry, because look, I think I mentioned this a lot in my podcast and in my content, is the pain emotions, the suffering comes from not acknowledging the emotions rather than
Exactly.
feeling the emotions. And we all learn, me too, including myself, I'm sure you Kerry too, like, to avoid our emotions. Mental health and well-being and all these topics that are now coming up so strongly after COVID, which is one of the silver linings, is how we can start acknowledging our emotions and just accepting it's okay to feel down one day. It's okay to feel like you're going backwards. It's okay to feel I'm lost. It's just lean into those moments and phases, because the most challenging phases, the phases with most pain, because you're going through a lot of triggers, are the opportunities for you to transform yourself. You are going through those situations and those challenging emotions for a reason. So lean into it, and you will realize that actually sitting with the emotions, as Kerry was mentioning, sitting and bringing presence to your body and to those emotions, it's easier than resisting the emotions. And the other very important part here is the more you lean into those challenging emotions, the more you will feel the duality of the emotion, like the happiness, the fulfillment, the content, because you start bringing that love to yourself. Presence is, accountability within yourself, is a lot of values that you start building within yourself. Care, love, respect. When you start giving that to yourself, is when you will experience that also in your external world. Whenever you are not giving that to yourself, that's when you are gonna bring the life will gonna bring situations where people are gonna show you where you need to focus on, where the work leans, which is probably on these examples that we have given. So I think we've given quite a really good points there. Maybe to just close the last part. What would you say, just in all what we've discussed, Kerry, will be your key takeaways for people, to go away and do this work with themselves?
I think overall being aware of your situation, learning to trust yourself internally as your safety place, and dealing with your emotions instead of avoiding it. Because when you do all that, it's going to lead you down the path of wanting, self-love more, and caring for your well-being and caring for your happiness. And when you start putting yourself first on your feelings, you can make healthier decisions. It'll be easier to make boundaries with people. So overall, going on this process gets you in deeper of really loving yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the self-love that comes from all these practices is just so amazing. And that's probably also where trust comes. When we don't trust others, and by the way, it's totally valid when you feel that you are not trusting others, because we grew up in uncertainty, on unpredictable environments where we couldn't trust our caregivers, not because they were bad, but because they also had their own things, their own trauma, and they didn't even know all the topics that we're talking about. So that's when the lack of trust is built from those uncertainty situations. So now what we need to do in order to bring that trust is to be there with ourselves regardless of what happens, knowing that, okay, I'm going to embark myself in this new relationship. If for some reason it ends up not being what I thought it will be, I've got myself. I'm going to be there for me. I'm going to be there dealing with the pain, dealing with the emotions. And is surprisingly, because I have started doing this in my two recent breakups with people that I was dating. And when I let myself just, sit with that disappointment, sit with that sadness of not turning out how you thought it would be, you actually overcome the situation so fast. You are leaning into the emotion, you are taking the learnings, and that's why you went through that situation. Is detaching from wanting things to go your way. And sorry, I know I'm talking a little bit of important things here and there. And then the other part that I wanted to mention, I think I lost the other part. Yes, it's just building that trust then within yourself. When you start trusting yourself that you're going to be there regardless, because life happens, we cannot control other people. What we can control is ourselves and how we approach every situation. That's when your trust for others will start also increasing, and you will bring people into your life that you are able to trust. It's like a mirror. Like life will always bring to us what we need to work on. So yeah, that will be probably my main one. And the other thing is, yes, healing and the inner work can be challenging, but it is really, for me, the main way for true happiness, true fulfillment, true content, and
Exactly.
to live life in abundance. And when I mean abundance, it does not mean money. in itself. There's nothing wrong with that. It will be a byproduct of you working of yourself. It will just bring so much richness in life of everything, because that richness is coming from yourself. So thank you so much, Kerry. It was so nice to have this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. This was wonderful. Love it. And great conversation.
Yeah, we love all these topics with Kerry. We might be collaborating more in the future. We have collaborated in the past. Kerry, is there any course or any program that you currently have that you would like to mention to anyone who might be listening to us?
Well, on my Instagram at Kerry Life Coach, you can go into the link tree, and there is a free happy life assessment. And it's something I devised a long time ago when I was struggling. And it really looks at 5 areas in your life: your relationship, environment, self-love and compassion, self-awareness, and self-care. And I've had some clients, it's not a test, it's for personal growth. I've had some clients come back and they're like, I got a 0. And I'm like, no big deal. That's great. Let's work on, what you can for your personal growth. And so if you're struggling and need more personal growth, that's something that you can get access to, and that will help you. And I will be having some online classes coming out in January.
Amazing.
Heal Now for the toxic relationship, self-love, and different ones like that.
So now you know, everyone. If you are listening to us, please go and reach out to Kerry. She's amazing. I really love her energy. We clicked the first time we chat, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Kerry, and just share all our passion in helping others going through their own journey. So I'm releasing also my new coaching program called Embodied Transformation, which is about from toxic relationships to deep emotional connection with yourself and others. It will be launched in the next couple of weeks, so please stay tuned. And if you would like to have also information about this program and any other of my programs, please feel free to DM me on my Instagram, or also go to my website. Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. I will see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.